Hi, this is Patricia Stepler with Your Inside Power, welcoming you to another episode on Win-Win TV. So what I wanted to talk about today was the powers that you have inside of you. You know, part of your inside power, and the reason I named this show is because we have so many powers inside of us that we do not realize that we have. And when we learn to utilize them, we can accomplish anything we really want to accomplish. I remember Bob Proctor, my friend and mentor, telling me of this story when he was asked to come speak to a group of teachers, and he wanted to talk to them about their intellectual powers or intellectual faculties, as he called them. I think they're powers. But anyway, Bob was asking them if anybody could tell the audience what those intellectual faculties were. And this whole group of educators, nobody could tell him what they were. Well, you know, that really hit home because I too was an educator. And if he'd asked me what the intellectual faculties were, I wouldn't have known either. You know, that's not something that we learn when we learn to become a teacher. Having him teach me about these intellectual faculties has made a huge difference in my life. So I want to share with you. So we have these 6 intellectual faculties. You know, we have the 5 senses, and that's how we relate to the world, through what we hear, see, taste, smell, and touch. And that's how we interact with the world. And every other animal in the animal kingdom interacts with the world in the same way. Human beings have been given these 6 intellectual faculties, which help them to relate to the world in a better way and in a more sophisticated and intelligent way. So let me just go through them really quickly because I want to focus on one of them today. We have the imagination. Now, Napoleon Hill said the imagination was the most marvelous, miraculous instrument we've ever been given. And you see, we can create the dream, we can create the reality that we want in our imagination. And when we focus on it and hold it with our will, which we'll talk about in depth here today, when we can do that, then we can obtain whatever it is we want. So the imagination is part of using your will and obtaining your goals. Next one, intuition. Some people call this the 6th sense, but intuition is that feeling that you get, and you're picking up vibrations. They're being sent to you either by other people or about the universal world or the higher power. Some people say that when you pray to God, you are talking to God or higher power, source energy, whatever you want to call it. And when God is talking to you, that comes to you through intuition. This is what will keep you safe. You know, sometimes if you feel that you're in a situation that maybe isn't safe for you, it's your intuitive factor that is picking up on those vibrations. Sometimes it's picking up on other people's feelings and what they're thinking. That enables you to relate to them better because you're actually feeling what they're doing. So when you can get to the point where you have developed your intuitive factor to a very high standard, you can almost sense what other people are thinking and doing. It can be a little scary, isn't it? And then we have memory. You see, we have that ability to remember events, and we can actually use our imagination to create memory of our future events. So memory is very important because this will help us to remember how to go places, and without just using our sense, but we have that memory to create those ideas and things that happen to us. But we can also use our memory to alter what's happened and to recreate in a different way. That's for another day. Then we have perception in how we perceive things. You know, can you look at somebody else's perception, their interpretation of an idea, and be able to understand where they're coming from? You see, when we can look at, you know, we have an idea of what we want, but when we can start to look at other people's ideas and understand their perspective and their point of view, that helps us to become a rounder person and to be able to relate to people and to understand that not everybody thinks like we do. And perhaps our thinking is flawed, or perhaps their thinking is flawed. But when we can perceive and use that perception and think of how other people may feel, don't you think that makes us live in a better world? And then we have reason, and reasoning faculty is being able to think. And I wish more people would think, because we all think these like surface thoughts. But when you start to think deep thoughts, that's when you can really change your world. And then, of course, the one we're going to talk about, will. Now, sometimes people get will and willpower confused. Willpower will only take you so far. So you decide to go on a diet, and you decide, I'm not going to eat that piece of cake. I'm not going to eat any dessert. I'm not going to eat any sugar. I'm not going to eat, this, that, and the other thing. And you get to that point where maybe you see that piece of chocolate cake that just looks so scrumptious, and you can break that willpower. See, willpower, when you take it so far, when you use your will, what you're doing is you're disciplining yourself and you're focusing on what it is that you want. So that's the one I wanted to talk about today. And we've been mentioning, or I've been mentioning, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. And I wanted to use the will because he actually uses 2 chapters in his book talking about the will and why the will is so important. So he must have believed it was very important in order to use in a scientific way in order to accomplish your dreams, whether it's wealth, whether it's health, whether it's relationships, whatever you choose it to be, will, he decided, was very important. So Reverend Michael Beckwith says that where there is a will, there is a wall. And if you become willful and you try to force it, you actually, what you do is you're creating resistance, because when you force something to happen, you create that resistance. And so you no longer are receptive to receiving the good that you desire, because you're pushing against that wall. Okay. So we don't want to create resistance. We want to use our will in a way that we're holding that idea and we're receiving the good that we want. So you have to develop this willingness, this ability to allow something to take place. And that is what the attraction is. And this is the creative part of you, because we don't want competition. We want creativity and creation to manifest. So set the direction that you want to go, and then be aware that it's already happening. You see, sometimes we think that something's not happening, or it's not happening fast enough. And instead of allowing it, we create this resistance because we don't believe. You see, this is foreign to most of us to think this way, which is why so few people do it. But those people that do this and follow in this manner change the world. So when you want to set about getting rich in a scientific way, you do not try to apply willpower to anything outside of yourself, or apply your will onto other people. You don't need to do that. You don't have that right, because what's good for you may not be good for that person. Just because it's something you think you need or something you think is good doesn't mean it's good for that person, because everybody is different. So you don't have to compel God or higher intelligence or source energy to give you the good things that you want, because there's more than enough for you and for everybody else. But it doesn't mean you all are after the same thing. So you have to keep in mind, and I believe in the last episode, if you go back to my episode, you'll see that in last week's episode that we talked about this thinking substance. So you have to believe and understand that there is this thinking substance that permeates and penetrates everything that there is. And that thinking substance wants and is quite anxious to give you the good that you desire. And when you know what to think and do, and doing things in a certain way and thinking in a certain way, then you have to use your will to compel yourself to continue to think and to do things in a certain way, as Wallace D. Wallace says. And you use your will to keep yourself thinking and acting in that way. So what you want to do is to use your mind to form the mental image. That's your imagination. That's the intellectual factor of the imagination. Use your mind to form the mental image of what you want and hold that vision with faith and purpose. You use your will to keep your mind working in the right way. And the more steadily and continuous your faith and purpose, the more rapidly you will get rich or get the relationships you want, or you get the health that you want, because you will only be making positive impressions in that formless substance. Listen to that once more. So you use your mind to form the mental image of what it is that you want, and you hold that image with the will of your mind. And the will, holding that image of what you want, will help your mind to be working in the right way so that you think and you act in a certain way so that you continue with that faith that it's going to happen. And the more rapidly it will happen when you put only positive impressions upon that formless substance. Now let's look at the word positive impressions. You see, it's very easy to say the wrong thing. So just to give you an example, we were in London. We've been on vacation. In fact, right now I'm recording this from a cruise ship. But we were in London, and my husband, I think I told this in the last story, he didn't lose his cell phone. He left his cell phone in a taxi when we were going to rent a car. And he didn't realize it until we were at the rental agency, and he started looking for his phone in his pockets and it wasn't there. And he started looking through the bag. He was, oh my gosh, I left it in the taxi. Well, in his mind, knew everything was going to work out. He was a tad panic, but he just knew it would work out. Well, in a few minutes' time, as we're trying frantically to figure out how do we get a hold of the taxi driver, how do we figure out who it even was, and started looking to find the hotel we'd stayed at, who got the taxi cab for us. And, as I was trying to do all that, get the phone number for the hotel, here comes the cab driver. He said, did you lose something? The next passengers got in his car, saw the cell phone, and he returned it to us because he knew where we were headed to get a rental car. So let's look at that a minute later. So now we're on a bus. We're on a bus tour. And we just finished a tour, and of course the guide said, now don't leave anything on the bus. Make sure you take all the packages that you got, take all your personal belongings, your cell phones, your passes, everything, and go to get off the bus. And there, one of the other guests that was on the tour with us said, did you leave your cell phone? I turned around and looked, and there was my husband's cell phone sitting on the seat where he was sitting. I go, not again. And so what happened was he said to himself, don't forget your cell phone. He was saying that over and over in his mind. And so he was telling me this the next day at breakfast, that he was saying, I knew it was there. I kept telling myself, don't forget it. And I said, that was your problem. He goes, yes, I should have said, remember your cell phone. I said, yes, because see, your mind doesn't understand that negative. So when you say, don't forget, it's telling your mind, forget your cell phone. So we have to be very careful with the words that we say. Now that doesn't seem like a negative, but you see it is to the mind. That was to his mind to just basically tell him to forget his cell phone. So that formless substance, that thinking substance that's out there, receives the picture of what you want, and then allows it to penetrate out to the world. Just as my son got the college scholarship, how did he get it? Because he held the picture with the will of his mind for 6 years that he wanted a college scholarship. He wanted to play in the southern part of the United States, play baseball at a school in the southern part of the United States. He had it clearly in his mind what he wanted. He held that picture. The substance knew the way to get there. He did not. His plans went astray quite early, and things were not working out. He thought he had ended and ruined his chance of getting that scholarship. What he did not realize, and what we did not, I didn't realize this either at the time, that there was this thinking substance that was out there, and it knows more than we know, and it knows the universe, and it connects things for us, and found him the perfect school for him to go to that met all his qualifications. You see, it's there. We have to trust it. We have to believe in it. And even though he had been told, you cannot expect a full scholarship in baseball, he got a full scholarship in baseball. Well, it wasn't for baseball, it was academic. You see, it wasn't going to be, he couldn't get a baseball scholarship. Wouldn't have mattered, well, if he was like the best person in the country, maybe, but it would have been difficult for him to get a full scholarship for baseball. But he found his goal to allow him to play baseball and give him an academic scholarship. You see, as the impression that he had spread through the whole world, it became realization and became his reality. So every little thing, this is Wattles speaking here, every little thing, every inanimate thing, and the things yet uncreated are stirred toward bringing into being that which you want. So what he's saying here is that even if it's not there yet, if you have that idea, the universe is trying to help you get it. So that's how inventors work. You know, they have this idea. They don't quite have the image yet. And as they hold the desire of that invention in their mind, the universe helps them to create it. And those things start to move towards you. And the mind and the people that you need will come to you every single time. And they work for you, not even realizing what's happening. So in the next chapter that Wattles talks about, when he talks about further use of the will, he wants you to understand that there's no competition. There is no competition, just abundance, and abundance for everything that can be accomplished in the universe. And not to compete with anyone. Now, sometimes it's very difficult because we build these competitions. Now, I do remember one time somebody asking me, well, you know, we have these competitions at work, and, you know, if you win, it helps your team, or it does this. That's a friendly competition. That's like you're all going towards the same goal. But what you don't need to do, and it's that kind of competition is okay. What you don't need to do is try to destroy someone else so that you win. That's what he's really talking about. You don't have to compete with somebody so that you win and they lose, because there's enough abundance for everybody to win. So that's really what Wattles is talking about in this chapter. So in the right to use your will, you are not taking away from somebody else. You're just attracting that prosperity to flow through you. So you must come to an understanding that poverty is not noble and being rich is not bad. Sometimes, and this goes back quite a ways in history, there were people who felt that to be righteous, you had to be poor. I don't know where that's written in the Bible. I don't know where people got that idea. But poverty is not more noble than being wealthy. Being rich is not a bad thing. It's what you do with the money that can either be evil or it can be good. See, it's not the money, it has nothing to do with it. Money is an inanimate object. When you worship money, that's not good. But money itself is not good. How are you going to do good for other people in the world if you don't have money to help them? See, there's only two things that we can do. We can give them time, or we can give them money. Time has limits. To my knowledge, nobody has more than 24 hours in a day. So there's limitations when you look at time. You have 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. It's limited. When you can become abundant and you can help people in a way where you can give them money, now you've multiplied, and you can easily create more abundance, but you can't create more time. You can organize your time better, but you can't create time. But you can create the lifestyle of your dreams and create more money. So being rich, being prosperous, being healthy, having great relationships, being successful simply means that you have the capacity to share more with other people. They'll get capacity to reveal the face of God, because you're not wasting your time trying to figure out how you're going to pay the bills. You're out there creating and building a better world for people. So release yourself from this idea that life is against you, and decide that life is for you, and that there is help out there. This substance is waiting to give to you what you really want. So Wattles says you cannot retain a true and clear vision of wealth if you're constantly turning your attention to opposing pictures, either externally or imaginatively. Okay, so what he's saying is you cannot create in your mind this picture of wealth and then hold also in your mind a picture of poverty, or think of wealth but continue to see in front of you poverty. So you have to be very careful at the thoughts and the things. So obviously, if you're driving and you come to a poverty-stricken area, you can't avoid seeing it, right? But you could, in your imagination, build an image of what it could look like if you had the resources to develop that area so it was no longer poverty-stricken. So I was in Barcelona a couple of days ago, and our tour guide was telling us that before the Olympics, when they knew the Olympics were coming to Barcelona, that they had a lot of problems in the city. And they knew that the one thing they had to do was clean it up. And so it took multiple people and a lot of energy. But they decided, the people of Barcelona and the, officials, the political officials or whoever was, in all of Spain, I don't know, or the area of Barcelona, but they decided they needed to clean it up. And so this tour guide was telling about the beautiful trees that they planted and how they cleaned up this neighborhood and took care of that neighborhood and, changed it. That's what he's talking about here. You cannot have that idea of wealth and be looking at everything that's wrong and the poverty, okay? You cannot aim at nothing so great or noble as being rich. You must fix your attention upon your mental picture of riches to the exclusion of all that may tend to dim or obscure your vision. So you've got to keep that vision going after what it is that you want and not allow those other ideas to interfere. He says the very best thing you can do for the whole world is to make the most of yourself. Wow, that is really powerful. Why is that so powerful? Because statistics show us, and I got this from Darren Hardy, and he shared that statistics show us that 80% people never look at a book, take a class, go to a seminar on how to improve themselves. 80%. Out of that 20% that do go to a seminar or read a book or do something, at least 10% of that 20 only do it because they're required by work. So that means there's somewhere between 5 and 10% of the population that is really looking to improve themselves. It's a very small amount, but that's why so few people are super successful, because most people won't take the time, the energy, and the money to invest in yourself. The best investment you can ever make is in yourself, not the stock market. Stock market goes up and it goes down, and investments go up and go down. Even the real estate, you have real estate that goes up and then all of a sudden it crashes and goes down. Invest in yourself. It's the best investment you can make, the best ticket to a better life. And Wattles says that there is only one way to scientifically think, and that is to think in a way that leads by the most direct and simplest route to the goal. What's the easiest way to get there? Most of the time we complicate things and make it way too difficult. And then that's when we tend to stumble along the way. So he reminds us again in this chapter that there's a thinking stuff from which all things are made, which in an original state permeates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the universe. And a thought in that substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. And you can form things in your thought, and by impressing your thought upon formless substance can cause the thing you think about to be created. Now, when you can take that statement, and if I was you, I would either get the book, The Science of Getting Rich, or I would go back and slow that recording down and copy down every single one of those words, because you need to embed those words into your mind so that you understand exactly what to do. So Wattles goes on to say, in order to do this, you must pass from the competitive to the creative mind. No competition, only creativity. You must form a clear mental picture of the thing that you want. And we've talked about that. Build it in your imagination. And you must hold that picture in your thoughts with a fixed purpose to get what you want. And the unwavering faith that you will get what you want. Closing your mind to all that may tend to shake your purpose, dim your vision, or quench your faith. You've got to hold it, believe it, and when an idea comes that is not in harmony with the good that you desire, you get rid of it. He goes on to say that you will receive what you want when it comes. You must act now upon the people and the things in your present environment. So that's explaining to you how to use the will. And as I said, you need to use the imagination, build the picture of what you want, hold it with your will. And when an idea that comes that's contrary to anything you want, get it out and don't allow it to come into your mind any longer. For more information, I suggest that you go to my website, Your Dream Power. So this shows your inside power. My website is Your Dream Power. And go down to the events section where you will see a list of different events I'm going to do, maybe some free workshops. And then there might be some like events that are very low cost so that you can learn more about this information so that you can accomplish and use your inside power to create the world that you want and to accomplish the goals that you truly want to have in your life. This is Patricia Stepler with Your Inside Power. I want you to be the magic in your dreams.